Well, the ball finally bounced Cincinnati's way. They finally got a little bit of good luck at the end of the game. They win a one-score game in Dallas. We're going to dive into that. We are also going to dive into the good, the bad, the ugly, the wild conversations that happened after the game within the locker room about contract situations. We're going to talk about Joe Burrow and his knee brace sleeve situation. We've got just so much to talk about from this game. Yes, they beat a 5-8 team, but it's still a win, and there's still a lot of good to go along with the bad this week. Thankfully, you are watching Deep in the Stripes. This is the sickest Bengals podcast around, and I am your host, Elise Jesse.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse.
From 31 yards, McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. They did it. They beat Mahomes at home. Wow, Joe Burrow. No way.
The sickest Cincinnati Bengals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
I mean, they break their 3-game skid. The ball finally bounces their way. I mean, let's just talk about the blocked punt for a second, because if you're like me, you saw the blocked punt by former Bengal Nick Vigil. Muma Jungmeta did not block Vigil, and he blocks the punt. And then I've never seen something like that happen in all of my years watching NFL football. Of course, the Cowboys touch the ball past the line of scrimmage, and then Muma Jungmeta then recovers. And we will get into, or I specifically will get into, that's one of the reasons why I like Muma Jungmeta so much, is the effort. He sees that he made a mistake. He's the reason why the punt was blocked in the first place. And then he brings full effort and sprints, actually shoves the guy who hit the ball out of the way so that he could recover the ball. Like, full effort, maximum effort from him. That's one of the reasons why I really like him, and I expect to see him with a lot more playing time down the road outside of special teams. So yeah, and oh my gosh, the Bengals get a gift. You have 2 minutes to go, and you have the chance to put the ball back in Joe Burrow's hands, and you know where he's going to go with it, of course. What was Dallas doing? I know they don't play the Bengals all the time, but they didn't double team Jamar Chase a whole lot throughout this game. They didn't. And Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow noticed that right away, took full advantage. And oh my gosh, well, there's so much to talk about from this game. Former Bengals defensive coordinator, 2 former Bengals defensive coordinators on the other side of the sidelines was Mike Zimmer and Paul Guenther. Domata Peko also helping to coach for the Cowboys this year. It was just so weird seeing those familiar faces on the TV copy along with the current Bengals situation. Oh my gosh, that was so weird. I was like, what? Oh my gosh, that made me feel old. I've been covering this team for way too long at this point. If you watch these episodes weekly, you already know that I was very honest last week, like I always am. I just wanted to see an entertaining product in primetime Monday Night Football. I did not want it to be a snooze fest. I didn't want to, we did see still a lot of mistakes, but I did not want to see just a flood of mistakes. And I wanted to see something entertaining. And the Bengals and the Cowboys certainly delivered on that front. CeeDee Lamb, a top receiver, barely talked about. Obviously, he had that catch in the end zone where Mike Hilton kind of lost track of him. I think Geno Stone was late on the blitz on that one. There you go. Okay, his touchdown there. But Jamar Chase just totally took over this game. What did he have? 14 catches for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. And just the way that he is able to move after he catches the ball and evade defenders and just get the yak, that's exactly what you want from this guy. And it brings me to a conversation that was started before the season began, when the whole contract situation was going down. We'll get into that as well. But some of you know who you are. We're calling Jamar Chase a diva. Really? Let's never talk about Jamar Chase being a diva again. Of course he wants top money. Look at the way this guy plays. Of course, I'll give you a little bit of grace. If you are one of the people who called Jamar Chase a diva, that was before he was a guy who was going for the Triple Crown in 2024. But wow, of course he wanted top money. He deserves top money. Everybody in the league knows it. I mean, Joe Burrow was talking about like getting a deal done with T and saying that he like wanted it to happen and all this stuff, and everyone was just running with it. And then Jamar Chase is like, I mean, it's chess at this point. I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, it's chess moves at this point. But yeah, it could get done to keep Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Tee Higgins all together. Now, I'm just going to dive right into this. I know I'm like kind of veering off for a second, but I feel like it needs to be addressed before I forget. Mind you, these are always kind of like after primetime games, forgive me, because they are always kind of sporadic, because I think I got to sleep at 1:30 in the morning, and then my alarm always goes off at 5:30 a.m. because life. So the brain cells have been diminished today. But back to what I was saying, Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, Joe Burrow talking about how he wants to keep Tee Higgins here. And then he was like, we'll see. And basically opening up that conversation and bringing up that conversation with 4 games left to play. Obviously, those are off-season conversations. We all know that's how the front office works. I thought that was very interesting. I like hearing Joe Burrow's opinion on the matter and hearing what he thinks about a guy and whether or not a guy is worth it for him to speak up about. Jamar Chase, obviously they're besties. Like there's so much to say about that duo, by the way. The fact, obviously he's going to go hard for Jamar Chase, but he was going hard for Tee Higgins as well. And while I like hearing that, I'm still not. I was getting text messages from people talking about like how it's a done deal. Like you should just expect to see Tee Higgins here next year, and you should expect to see Jamar Chase's deal get done. What gives you all the confidence? Like, please let me know in the comments too. What gives, if you are fully confident that the Bengals front office will get Tee Higgins done, probably a tag, but keep him around, and also make Jamar Chase the highest paid wide receiver in the league? Let me know why. What makes you think that? Because to me, I look at it this way. The Bengals approached Jamar Chase about his contract first. He and his agent did not approach the Bengals, as I understand, in the summer during training camp. They were not able to get a deal done with Jamar Chase before this season, before his price skyrocketed, before he was a Triple Crown candidate. I mean, the numbers are just absolutely flipping insane. He is first, 1,319 receiving yards. That is first in the NFL. 93 catches. That is first in the NFL. 15 touchdowns. That is first in the NFL. And then you've also got Joe Burrow, who is having arguably an MVP caliber season. You can't go cheap with him. You're not going to fool him. You're not going to get anything by him or his agent. Like, you just literally have to deal with the fact that you were unable to get a deal done that could have been cheaper for the franchise. But you were trying to go so cheap that now you're in a situation where you will be paying significantly more to keep the one guy that Joe Burrow must have around, wants to be on this team. That is an interesting predicament. Wow, Joe Burrow. We're going to have another conversation about Joe Burrow, because do you guys remember there were some who were saying that Joe Burrow was greedy, that he took too much money, that he shouldn't be paid that much money. He is paid well. I believe it jumps up by like a little bit more than 10 million next year in 2025, his guaranteed money. But look at what this man is doing. 3,706 passing yards, first in the NFL. 33 passing touchdowns, first in the NFL. And by the way, he doesn't have like an offensive line that is protecting him. I don't know if you watched last night, Did he have any simulation of a pocket to pass from last night? Absolutely not. That dude is, there was a lot of comments too. If you went to like social media or YouTube and you saw the post game, game ball situation with Zach Taylor, people were commenting and saying like, Joe Burrow looks like he's so sick of Zach Taylor. I did not feel that. I did get the sense that that young man was exhausted. His 28th birthday. It's so funny too, because like what they ask of him, like he's not protected. Micah Parsons is just like coming at him. He's lining up anywhere he wants. He is just like absolutely making Joe Burrow's day difficult. Mike Zimmer is very good at that, as we know. And he, half the time when he makes a throw, it's amazing because he has to have so much trust in his own abilities, and he has to have like an insane amount of trust in Jamar Chase's abilities and the timing, in Mike Gesicki's abilities, in Tee Higgins' abilities, and Andre Yoshivas's abilities. When he makes the throw, he's like throws it down the field and then wham, he's on the ground. He doesn't even see if his pass is a completion or not. He doesn't see what happens after after his receiver catches the ball. Like he's just on the ground, and he's mentioned that numerous times. He's like, I have no idea what happened, because obviously as reporters, like you would love to hear what the play looked like from the player's viewpoint. And so he's asked that question by reporters pretty often. And he has so many times this year has been like, I'll have to see film or like a replay of it, because I have no idea what happened. I just like threw it and then somebody's in the end zone. So funny. We saw their timing and how incredible this duo between Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow is, because that first touchdown to Jamar Chase, and you'll find a screenshot of it. There's been a lot where Joe Burrow lets go of that pass to Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase's back is still turned to Joe. He has not looked Joe's way yet. As soon as he turns around, the ball's at him, makes the catch for the touchdown. It's just insane. And it is like those two are magic together. They are so fun to watch. So I was entertained, as you can tell. And we're going to try to stay positive throughout this episode, but we do have to jump into our rant of the game, because there were quite a lot of mistakes made in this one.
Elise's rant of the week.
My rant of the game, run defense. Man, run defense. Rico Dowdle, he averaged 7.3 yards per carry, which was a career high. And the Bengals showed insufficient run defense once again. And he was the Cowboys' first running back with consecutive 100-yard games since Tony Pollard in 2022, finishing with a career high 131 rushing yards on 18 carries. Come on. Or CeeDee Lamb busting downfield for, 43 yards? Lord, can you wrap a guy up? Can you stop the run? That's why when people like come to me and they're like, oh yeah, the Bengals are totally going to win next week. I'm like, are you sure? Your running back might have a really good day against the Bengals defense. I don't know about that one. Now, Bengals defense, obviously there were missed tackles by almost everybody on defense. They did look a little bit better. I felt like I saw a little bit more effort. And if you disagree, let me know. That's fine. Like, let me know in the comments. But I felt like I was seeing more effort on that front. They didn't always hit home, but there was a little bit more effort there. I'm wondering how, and this is another reason I'll circle back to the contract conversation. I don't know how you can afford Jamar Chase, what he's going to want guaranteed, Joe Burrow's guaranteed money unless he restructures, which I don't know if that's going to happen, Tee Higgins, and also poor monetary resources into your defense, because your defense needs a massive facelift. It needs an upgrade. We know that. That has been well documented. And I think their 5-8 record can back that up for sure, especially with an MVP caliber quarterback and a Triple Crown All-Pro wide receiver on the team who is literally carrying this team to 5 wins. They could have had a significant amount of more wins. They could have been talking about the playoffs. We're not going to talk about the here because this chance of them getting into the playoffs now is so slim. It's not even it's thinner than this paper right here. We're not going to talk about it. It's not worth it. It's not worth our time. You know me, I don't like wasting my time or yours. Man, they could have had a different season. They could have had a really, really fun, magical year. And that is not the case. And that is significantly due to Cincinnati's defense being inadequate, lack of effort. We've seen it time and time again. And maybe just not having the skills and the talent that they need in order to compete, especially in the AFC North. The Steelers, the Ravens, the Browns, they get better and better and better every single year. They know that they have to deal with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But the Bengals, yeah, I just don't know if they did enough. Could they do enough? Could they afford to do enough? There's just so much that I worry about, honestly, with this team. Granted, they did force 4 punts last night. We were able to watch the Bengals defense in a very interesting, sticky situation down the stretch, the final minute of the game. They did get a stop there on 3rd down, and they gave the ball back to Joe, who was able to kneel it down, but they were average, I would say, about average last night. They haven't been average all year. They've been well below average. The numbers speak to that. And everyone's just been asking, like, if you have an average defense, you might have quite a few more wins under your belt. You might be talking about seeding at this point. You might be talking about home field advantage in a few weeks. Instead, we're going to start talking about draft picks soon. I know some people did not want to see a Bengals win last night because I think that dropped them a couple of spots. Like, it compromised their draft position by a couple of spots, I believe. But I think that this Bengals team needed that win. When you go so long without a win, they went 3 straight games without a win, it really wears on them. And you can see that from them when you walk into the locker room. You can see them after losses, like how it wears on all of them. And so a win, cool. I'm happy to see it. Happy for the players, happy for a few guys on the staff who I know have worked really, really hard and have not seen the fruits of their labor. But at the end of the day, again, you beat a sub 500 team. So how much celebrating is that worth? Cowboys are 5-8. And you almost lost. If not for Mumajang Meta. I don't know if it was worth as much celebrating as I saw on the Bengals social media platforms in the locker room, the visiting locker room last night. But I get it. You could take a breath, take a breather, move on. It's a short week. Move on to the Titans next week. But my attitude was kind of like Joe's. Like, okay. At least he kept the game ball this time. That was funny to see. And it was funny because Zach Taylor, before he headed the game ball to Joe Burrow, he was like, he's probably not going to want this. We all know that he doesn't want that game ball. He doesn't want that game ball. No. He's looking at his team who's 5-8. Let's talk about the injuries to Joe Burrow. Let's talk about it's criminal that they don't call the face mask on Joe Burrow. Like, his face is getting like, I was like, are they going to rip his head off before someone's going to do anything? Like, what is going on? What You don't see that? And yes, it was kind of crowded, so fine. They didn't see it. Figure out a way to correct that during the game. If the refs miss a call, but you can clearly see it from New York, have some type of system built in to where New York can be like, hey, big problem here. We watched Joe Burrow's head get ripped off. That's definitely a face mask. Penalty. Bing. That's the second time that's happened to Joe Burrow. He got hit. I think he only recorded 2 sacks last night, but he is so good at evading defenders. He still got hit 8 times last night. And I've already referenced how when he makes a throw, he's almost instantly on the ground. He doesn't see the completion. He doesn't see what happens after his receiver makes a play on the ball, catching the ball. Because he's on the flipping ground. He's got a 300-pound lineman on top of him. I'm looking for a word, a classier word than the one that comes to mind. I don't want to poo all over the Bengals offensive line, because here's the deal with the offensive line. Trent Brown and Orlando Brown Jr., 2 massive 6'8" bodies, were supposed to be in place to protect Joe Burrow this season. It's no longer the case. Volson, gosh, I like that guy a lot. He is such a kind, considerate human being. But he was benched last week for a reason, in favor of backup Cody Ford. Yeah, the offensive line is going to struggle without 2 of your biggest starters. I think Joe Burrow is just kind of like, you know what? I'm going to deal with the hits. I'm just going to literally run for my life, or just deal with getting thrashed all game long because I'm missing 2 of my big guys. Maybe he's just come to terms with that. I hope that we don't end up in a situation where Joe Burrow does get hurt on one of these hits. He takes a lot of hits. He takes a beating every single game. Every game. It's unacceptable. For a guy of his caliber, he's not getting a face mask call. Second time this season. Guys bumping him at the end of plays. We've talked about that a few times. And I already mentioned that I asked Cody Ford about it last week, and how no one seems to get into anybody's face after a defensive lineman shoves Joe after the play or runs into him with enough force to make an impact on Joe, but not enough to draw a significant penalty from the refs, and how those can add up. And Cody Ford was telling me how they handle that between the whistle because they don't want to get the penalty, and they view that as hurting the team. But my point is this: you had 10 penalties for 77 yards last night. Make one of them count. Make one of them be worth a crap. Make one of them send the message to Micah Parsons: touch my quarterback again, and I will rip your head off. Not happening. It's not happening here. Why not? Why wouldn't you take that penalty? If I'm Zach Taylor, I would be happy to see that penalty. If I'm Joe Burrow, I'd be happy to see that penalty. Thanks, man. Thank you for having my back on that one. Appreciate it. Dude, he had to put a knee brace on his left knee, which is the one where he had the torn ACL. I'll never forget, after that play happened, Joe Burrow's rookie year, he goes down, and it's maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes, 45 minutes after the game, and Joe Burrow left in the cart, and it did not look good, obviously. And the reports were coming out. Actually, the reports had not come out yet, what that injury was. And I had a couple players in the locker room texting me who had just seen Joe Burrow in the locker room, and they were just kind of they were worried for their quarterback. They were like, it is bad. His knee is shredded. It is so bad. I mean, they were really worried for him. He makes a comeback from that. If you're Joe Burrow, I'm pretty sure you'd be putting on that padded sleeve brace, whatever it was as well. Because Mike Zimmer was sending blitzing him, making his life a living hell. I mean, Mike Zimmer had no mercy for Joe Burrow. I totally understood that situation. Because if you're Joe Burrow, think about this. Like, put yourself in Joe Burrow's shoes for a second. Yes, you are paid handsomely. But also think about the fact that your rookie year, you sustain a knee injury, a significant knee injury, and you have to fight back from that and to be able to play. And then you have to fight back from a wrist injury, and you're never healthy, and you have to go through like COVID season, and you're fighting for a simple, healthy season. And now you have that healthy season, and you're fighting for your life on every play. You're fighting to stay upright on every single play. I can't even imagine like how exhausting that is. Like mentally and physically, not just physically, but mentally as well. We're going into week 15 of that. He is paid handsomely because he does more than anybody else on that football field. He is not greedy. He fully deserves every single dollar that comes his way. That's how I feel about Joe Burrow. That's how Joe Burrow actually feels about Jamar Chase, as do I. Jamar Chase deserves every single dollar that comes his way. Jamar Chase deserves for his price to go up. That's all I really have to say. Entertaining product. I am thankful for that. A win. I mean, I'm not like jumping off the rooftop excited about a win over a 5-8 team, but at least they were able to pull out a 1-score game. So that was good to see. More of that I would just really like to see in the future. I'm gonna ride this horse until like it's dead. Booma Jogmeta, please play him more. Please. Let's see this man in real live football game action that's outside of special teams. Would love to see it. That's really my final thought on this. I can't remember. I feel like I'm missing something. I probably am, but there's like the list of things to talk about from this game is so long. Like I'm like looking at all my papers and stats to see, Chase Brown. Wow. Really quick before we go, because we're getting kind of long here. Do you remember last year, Joe Burrow was obviously the number one back. And anytime we saw Chase Brown, like it seemed like anytime he was on the field, like you just saw that explosion from him. The fearless running, the hard running, he's so strong and explosive. He was so exciting to watch last year. And now with Zach Moss on IR, Chase Brown is really taking advantage. He is evolving. He has just been such a ray of light for this team that has not struggled offensively, but struggled as a whole. Seeing his development as a running back and as a significant threat in the NFL has been something that has been fun to see. He had 6 catches for 65 yards last night, and he had 14 carries for 58. He did enough to impact the game. That has been something that I have enjoyed watching. And you just imagine this offense with an average defense, how different a Bengals fan's life could be. Let me know your thoughts. Also, let me know if I'm forgetting something and we can chat about it in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Coming up later this week, we will talk about the Titans, and we will talk about, maybe we will get into a little bit of their draft position. I haven't really decided on that yet. Let me know if you want me to talk about that when we can. But for now, Victory Tuesday. I'll see you later on this week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Deep in the Stripes with Elise Jesse on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.